I saw this tweet on CTV, which I am increasingly of the view is just as much a mouthpiece of the Liberal government as the CBC is. Here's a tweet here. Half of young Canadian men are at risk of problem anger, survey finds. And my antenna are out for what a feminist outlet like CTV would do here. If men have mental health challenges, obviously blame the men. There's a little bit of that undercurrent here, I think, in the wording. But let me read the story a bit for you, which says, half of young Canadian men risk letting their anger interfere with their daily life, relationships, and work, new research suggests. A survey conducted for Intentions Consulting and the Canadian Men's Health Foundation found that 50% of men between the ages of 19 and 29 are at risk of, quote, problem anger, compared to just 22% of all Canadian men. The findings reveal a troubling reality and warn of deeper stress and disconnection from support system for young men, the CMHF said in a Wednesday press release. All right, I suppose it's sort of neutral so far. Let me read some more because the next line actually surprised me a little bit, and it surprised me that CTV published it. It's startling but not shocking, CMHF President and CEO Kenton Boston told CTV News Channel on Wednesday. Boston said young men, like many Canadians, experience economic stressors, including affordability concerns, job insecurity, and a lack of housing options. Now, I think that's true. And I'd add in more, like the entire entertainment industry demonizing men, especially young men, as toxic. Like the entire world denigrating masculinity and promoting, transgenderism instead. That Health Foundation spokesman mentioned affordability, jobs, and housing. I can combine those words all into one. Immigration. That's why wages are low. That's why inflation is up. That's why housing is so high. It just is. Let me read some more. There's also the switch that's happened in society about masculinity and the negative conversations that are often associated with that now, and that all combines to put pressure on young men in particular, he said. Right. Like CTV, a feminist, leftist, anti-male advocacy group posing as a news station. The story then quotes some results from the study. The survey found that 39% of Canadian men between 19 and 29 reported a violent impulse when getting angry within the last month, compared to 16% of all Canadian men. Boston said it's important for young men to develop ways to deal with their anger before an impulse turns into action. Incidents of where your fuse is shorter than it normally is, those are the real signs about things to be challenged and looked into to make sure there is support to help to alleviate that angst and anger. So he's saying that young men are angrier than older men. I actually think that's been true for all history. Young men are full of vim and vigor and instinct to travel and explore and fight and go on adventures and prove that they're men. Young men traditionally join the army, or they, found other adventures in business that had similar mindsets, like thoughtful risk-taking and endurance. I have no doubt that young men are angrier at a system that has jacked up housing beyond their reach, which then makes marriage less feasible. Marriage, of course, transforms male impulses into productive ones, earning a living, protecting the family. You can't do that without a family, and you can't get a family without a house. But what's the advice of this expert? He wants it to be sure that there is support to help to alleviate that angst and anger. Maybe I'm just a skeptic, but I don't know if therapy, typically that's with a middle-aged female psychologist, I don't know if therapy is an answer for young men feeling stressed and angsty. I just don't think that calling some government helpline is how it works in the real world with young men. I don't think sharing your feelings with an expert works in many cases, let alone for young men. I think men have traditionally hung out with other men, role models, colleagues, peers, not whining and crying, but just being guys in pubs, in a club, a men's club. There used to be those. And I'm not talking about a dance club. I mean, for a generation, there were men's clubs and women's clubs, I suppose, but mainly men's clubs, a place where they could get away. It's sort of like the man cave in a house. Rotary Club, Lions Club, even a bowling league. There were male things to do. A ton of different clubs. Some of them were a little bit quirky, to be sure, but it was a place for guys to be guys, just even for a few hours a week. These days, Those are all called sexist. And often a same-sex club is being soothed into oblivion. Fraternities are practically banned from colleges. Groups like the Proud Boys, started by our alumnus Gavin McInnes, that's basically a masculine club that venerated the West, that was actually deemed a terrorist group by Justin Trudeau with no basis, by the way. I don't know. I think the study is right. Men are angry, especially young men. I think the study halfway gets the explanation for why. I think it failed in the what are we going to do about it part. I think part of the reason that young men are becoming nihilist trolls like that Nick Fuentes is because the usual outlets for male aggression, having a healthy relationship with a wife and building a family and shouldering the heavy burden and making a living for the whole family, that would take all a man's energy and angst. You'd be exhausted. But all of those things have been removed, as they've been removed for women too. No wonder the birth rate is plummeting. And the globalist left's solution, replacement immigration, only makes the problem worse.